Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
So you've set up your office there for doing some YouTube recording.
Yeah, I was for a little while with YouTube, but
Yeah.
then I've been shadow banned. So when I put things on YouTube now, I don't get many views come through at all.
That sucks.
Yeah, I think people were whinging that I was catching grass too much.
Well, YouTube wouldn't have listened to them.
No, I don't know what happens when you get shadow banned. I had a bit of a look about it, and it just shows that you won't get shown up on any of the search results or anything, unless they specifically search for you.
Yeah, I think because it's an algorithm, it's hard to know whether it's a human clicking a button saying let's block you, or whether it's the algorithm going, we don't think you're actually interesting, so we're not going to pick you up.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah.
It's a bit of a tough one. You're doing a fair bit on TikTok last time I looked.
Yeah, I've got a few TikToks happening.
Yeah.
That seems to be easy to work with.
Yep.
You pick up the phone and press record, and what do you got
this?
there? SME mowers.
And competition, mate.
Walker. Yeah, I got a lot of time for SME mowers. They set me up with the big bobcat that I had.
Mm.
Yeah, Jason. It was Jason. He was he helped me out a lot with the bobcat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How did you like the Bobcat? Obviously, you went for the Ferrari instead.
Yeah, no, the Bobcat was good. I bought a demo version, the 42-inch commercial. So it had two fuel tanks and a commercial engine. That was a great little mower. Then I moved up to Hervey Bay, and it just wasn't big enough for all the lawns I was doing. So I ended up getting the at the time was the flagship model, the Predator Pro, and it was a great mower.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what size in the Bobcat was it?
It was a 62-inch or 61-inch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the second one from the top. They did have a 72-inch, I think it was.
And that had the blower unit on the side, right, for catching?
Yeah, eventually I went and bought a catcher for it. So what happened there is I was mulching lawns. I mulched lawns for 10 years, and we were just getting sick of double cutting, triple cutting, and trying to make it neat and blowing down after you've cut it all. And I got sick of that. And then I got hold of Ben, and he sent me a Catch Pro.
Yeah.
And it just turned from doing double cuts to one pass, and it was a clean cut lawn. And then,
hang on a minute. When you say you got the Catch Pro from Ben on the 62-inch machine?
Yeah, on the 62-inch machine or 61-inch machine.
Yeah, okay. I'm the opposite of orgasming there. I'm doing a turtle just thinking about it.
Yeah, it was great on the small lawns. If I only had to empty it once or twice, it was great. But when I tried to use it on the big lawns, it was too small. I think they're 100 litres. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah,
100 litres. And I couldn't keep up with it.
So let's give Ben props for this. It's a brilliant idea, and it's great for a 32-inch machine, right? But the reality, and Ben likes to not talk about the size of the machine, but that's going to come into it. Doesn't matter how you split this. The reality that is important is the size of the lawn. So if you're cutting 200 square metres, you could probably cut 3-foot high grass and you're still only going to fill 1 or 2 catches, right? Because it's only a small lawn. But if you're
that's correct.
If you're cutting an acre at a time, the Catch Pro is not an efficient machine.
No, that's right. It's designed for small to medium lawns. You can use it on the bigger lawns if you're game. I did that a couple of times, but as soon as it had a bit of growth to it, you had to empty it too many times. But for the smaller lawns, I was driving in there and driving out. The whole lawn was jam packed into the Catch Pro, and it was great. And that's when I got hooked to catching. So I bought the side bagger with the clamshell bagger on the back for the 61-inch Bobcat.
Yeah.
That was 4 times bigger than a Catch Pro, so it was a 400-litre hopper on it.
So that's got the blower on the side, the bags on the back of the machine.
Yeah, blower on the side, and it's powered by the deck pulleys, and it shoots it up into a clamshell design, so you can dump it from the seat, so you didn't have to get off the mower to dump the grass.
So not quite a high lift, but a dump system nonetheless.
Yeah, not a high lift at all, just a dump system.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's handy. So with that system, did you go through belts because you got to run is it an extra belt or just a longer belt?
No, it was an extra belt. So you replace one of the pulleys on the deck, so it ends up being a double decker pulley, and then you run a belt that comes with it, and it turns at 90 degrees and has a fan blade assist spinning that. And the biggest problem with that design is when you jam up, because the deck's still spinning and the belt stays still, it was just tearing belts up left, right, and centre.
Okay, so you do shred belts if you run into issues.
Yeah, absolutely. If you only use it for like weekly lawns, there was no real issue. But if you've seen any of my videos, I put everything through the pace.
Yeah, you've gone all or nothing. You've gone from, in my camp, of mulching everything to the opposition, and you are the opposition in this particular issue. You are catch everything, doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, catch everything, doesn't matter how long it is. If it's too rocky, that's when I start pulling up. If I don't want to send any rocks through the systems, but yeah, I've gone from mulching everything and refusing to catch to the opposite. Now I won't mulch; I only catch. That is Catch Bro Ben's fault. That is.
Yeah. So I've talked about this on the podcast once or twice, and I don't typically want to get into the mulching is better than catching argument, but it is better, right? So the way I've looked at it, I'm interrupting this friendly debate to ask you what impact recent market changes and economic conditions have had on your business. For answers, try Think Tank Coaching at outlook.com. Did probably 10 years of residential jobs, and residential in my area is anything from 400 square metres of grass through to 3/4 of an acre.
Yep.
And I just realised early on that mulching was better than catching. So what I did is I built my business around having a ride-on mower that would mulch the grass and do a really good job of mulching, so that preferably didn't need to double cut. Occasionally you need to double cut when the grass is thick or tall, but preferably most of the time it'd be really quick in and out, don't have to carry grass clippings away, and at that point in time didn't have green bins. So it was just a case of going, okay, I'm going to filter out the jobs where people want me to catch the grass, or I'm going to charge them a premium so it makes it worth my while.
Yep.
And I did 95% of my jobs mulching.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I was originally from Newcastle. That's where I started the lawn mowing business.
That's me.
Yeah. And the grass down there, most of it's buffalo. And buffalo, as you know, mulches real easy. So I didn't worry. I was seeing people with catches, and it just, I don't know, I couldn't see the point in catching. I did that for 10 years.
So when you went to Queensland, you got converted?
Yeah, well, most of the lawns up here are cooch. And if you know cooch doesn't mulch, it fluffs up.
Look, I've had a number of jobs with cooch in the grass, and if you know Newcastle well, there's usually 3 types of grass on any one lawn. It's not one only.
Yep.
So I'd be mowing along through the buffalo, and this relates really well to my original mower. I had a Dixon 42-inch zero-turn, mowing along flat out, top speed through the buffalo, hit the cooch, and it would just go brrr.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's my first zero-turn was a Dixon Ram 50.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What was yours?
What's the 42-inch one? It had the pressed metal deck. And
yep.
Here's a trick for people who think pressed metal decks are rubbish. They mulch better. They do a much finer job of mulching. You go over any lawn in Newcastle area with a pressed metal deck and gator blades on, and you don't get clippings left over. It just looks like it's been caught.
Yeah, it can.
Until it doesn't, right? Until you get that wet grass that clumps, or that 3-foot high grass that you try mowing over it 2 times and then 3 times to spread the clippings, and it still looks terrible. But 95% of the time, that machine gave such a good finish in that regard that I was like, I would never change machines. And then, the pressed metal deck got warped, bent, re-welded back together, all those sorts of issues. And I went for a walker, and the walker didn't mulch as well as the pressed metal deck did.
Yeah, it's something to do with the shape of the deck. With the pressed deck, they're rounded, and they're not square.
Also, the walkers are very shallow deck design, so they're not made to lift the grass much. They're made to cut it fairly flat.
Yep.
So they're good. Don't get me wrong. A walker gives the best finish of any mower in the world, but when you're mulching, they don't do a great job of mulching. You and I don't have to agree on much.
We don't have to agree on that one.
No, we don't have to agree on anything.
Walkers are good. I won't badmouth walkers. They're good. They're second best cutting deck. Johnny Ferraris do cut a little bit better.
Yeah,
I reckon.
Well, I like
it's each to their own.
I
Depends
like that
on.
Gianni's got more deck options than Walker does. So you've got a flail deck for it, I believe?
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 different decks you can get for it. You've got a RCA deck, which is the equivalent to a Walker's reverse rotation, I think they call it in Walkers.
Yeah.
Yep, and then they've got another one that just spins the normal way.
Yep.
And you've got a flail deck as well as a 3x1 deck. 3x1 deck is a flail deck that can mulch and catch and dethatch.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's just about sold me on Gianni full stop on that machine alone, because it's like that is pretty close to the ultimate deck that you could have for a lot of jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like a multi-purpose deck, but it's going to do a really good job of any of those.
Yeah, well, that's right. A lot of things when they're only designed for one purpose, they do it really well. And I'm surprised with the 3x1 deck, it does all three of them really well. It's got a big roller on the back, a real big roller on the back. So when it's cutting, it lays the best stripe out of all the
I bet
Gianni Ferrari decks.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of weight in it, and it can take down 6-foot grass if you're just mulching. It just goes straight through it.
There was a guy posted in LMCA this week, Ventrac leaving stripes, and it was running a flail deck. And I think flails, if the flail has nice sharp hammers on it, and you can get Y flails or hammer flails, and there's probably a couple of other options as well, but nice sharp hammers, they can do sports fields and give a beautiful finish.
Yeah.
Or they can go out there and tackle 6-foot high grass and saplings and scrub and lantana and bricks and whatever else. So it's not going to give a really good finish to the whole time if you're out there smashing bricks apart with it. But they are capable of doing sports fields really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And because when you're going through the thicker stuff, like you're mentioning with the one that was put on Facebook the other day, the whole length of the deck, it lays the grass out, so it doesn't just throw it to the side. So it gives a nice finish, even though it was overgrown lawn.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's not quite the same as catching in that regard, right? Like you can't catch that much grass and, I guess, deal with it all.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes I push it a bit too far, but you can catch my mower was only a medium in the Gianni Ferrari world. So the bigger the Gianni Ferraris will eat mine for breakfast. And
let's talk about price on that matter for a minute, because a lot of people are just going to go, Gianni Ferraris are totally out of my price range. But I've seen the smaller units, like a 42-inch deck with a smaller motor on it.
Yep.
They're sort of comparable in price to a Walker, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But they're not what I call them. They're not a true Gianni Ferrari. They absolutely are a true Gianni Ferrari. What I mean by that is my mower and the ones higher can go through overgrown stuff real easy, collect it and take it away. But the zero-turn one that's similar design to the Walker, it still does it, but you've got to be mindful that it's only a small machine.
So less horsepower means that it's going to bog down more if it's getting pushed to the limits.
Yeah, less horsepower, and the tubes in them are a lot smaller, so the deck and the tube and the blower is a lot smaller as well.
Yep.
It was slightly bigger than a Walker, but not too much.
So good for doing well-maintained lawns, but you don't want to push your limits with the overgrown stuff.
Well, I do.
Yeah, but that machine's not the best machine for pushing your limits with.
No, not at all. No, it still does it really well. I've tried to get people to compare it side by side with the Walker, but no one around here wants to do that. No, I like Walkers. There's nothing wrong with it. You put them in the right position and on the right jobs, and they're like I said, they leave a great cut.
Yeah. I still think Walkers are one of the best machines you can buy. But when you're going and comparing Walker beside Gianni Ferrari, you are talking different purpose mostly.
Yeah,
unless
absolutely.
Unless you put that particular Gianni Ferrari beside a Walker, then they're getting comparable.
Yeah, that's right. So, I'll tell you a story about the just before I got the Gianni Ferrari, I was trying to get into the Walkers.
Yeah.
Right. I've gone into we've only got one Walker dealer here. Hervey Bay's not really big, so generally you've only got one shop of whatever it is. And I was in there with one of my kids. I walked up in my old beat up Nissan Patrol, and I had my logo on the side of it. And I walked in there and I was looking at the Husqvarna, the biggest model Husqvarna whip snipper they had.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a snarky remark behind the counter. I was the only one in the shop about having a shitty car and looking at the best gear. And I turned around and said, "What was that?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing, wasn't talking to you. No one else in the shop," right? So I put it down and I've walked out, and that just turned me off walkers.
Yeah.
It's each their own. Some people like the shop and other people won't. I won't mention the name of it, but if you're from Hervey Bay, there's only one.
It wouldn't be hard to find it.
Yeah, that's right. But it's not the only problem I've heard from him. But they really turned me off Walker, and I was ready to buy one. I think about a week later, I bought the Gianni Ferrari, and as you've seen, I haven't gone back from there.
Unfortunately, dealers make or break a relationship like that, and I've seen so many dealers where other contractors are going, yeah, they're the best dealer in town. I've walked in there and they just don't give me the time of day. And it's like, well, I can't buy something off you if you don't actually talk to me and treat me like I'm a human.
Yeah, that's it. Their problem was I was looking at the comparison to a Stihl FS240. So I wanted another whippersnipper, and I wasn't sure if I was going to go back to a Stihl or not because I needed more power. And because I've gone straight into the biggest equipment they had, they thought I was only just having a look and not really interested. So they missed out on a big sale.
They did. They lost out big time.
Yeah. Well, I've bought 2 Gianni Ferraris since then, and if that guy was had been nice to me instead of the opposite in front of the kids, that I would have probably ended up with 2 Walkers instead.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that you did your research and bought the best machine. Not just put off by the dealer.
Yeah, no, I did a lot of research building up to it, and what it turned out to be is at the time I was doing a lot of overgrown lawns, and I want to do the overgrown lawns in one pass, cut, collect, and get rid of the stuff.
Yeah,
and the walkers the videos I've seen on the walkers doing overgrown lawns, they're not designed for it.
Yeah, I know a few people that have used the walkers, and we're talking specifically the walkers with the GHS or the grass handling system.
Yes, that's correct.
I've seen a few people use them to do overgrown jobs. It's not meant to do it. It can do it. But I think the truth's going to come out when you're doing them regularly, or you tackle an overgrown job without checking that it's got debris or bricks or branches or any of those sorts of things, get stuck in the walker blower, and you know what pain is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's why I went with the Gianni Ferraris. They're a bit more rugged design for overgrown stuff, and a bit more forgiving when you do hit stuff. I shouldn't have said that now out loud. But put the walker in. People think I hate walkers, and that's not entirely true. They just put him in the right what they're designed for, and like you say, they're hard to. Nothing really competes with them except for Gianni Ferrari.
Yeah. So back to what I was saying before, in terms of putting Gianni Ferrari into a particular box, what's the price point for the cheapest one, the mid-range, and then high end of a Gianni Ferrari, so people get a bit of a feel for what they're working with?
With the Gianni Ferraris, I wouldn't buy anything under a turbo grass.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the smaller models. They've got electric ones and a few others, but I know nothing about them.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know what they can do. I think they're more designed for a one-purpose job. Like if you've got a car park that you don't need a zero turn in, and a lot of councils buy them. So if you're looking at Gianni Ferraris, I would be looking at turbo grass and up, and they start from about 40,000, 44,000. Can't really quote me. And my one at the time 3 years ago was 50,000.
Yeah, and that means now it's probably about 65, 70.
Not quite that much, but this was before COVID prices, so who knows what COVID's done to the prices.
Everything seems to jump up by about 20% with COVID.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, mine was 50,000, which was the other one that I bought, the Bobcat, that was 20,000. So it was a huge gamble at the time. The way I see it is your customers are paying for the mower. As long as you can keep those customers coming in, they'll pay for the mower, and you're not paying for it, if that makes any sense. Might be not the right way to see things, but that's the way I like to see it.
I think this comes down to your business model, right?
Right.
So you look at different business models. There's 1,000 guys that will come into LMCA, or they'll listen to the podcasts, that are happy to run around with a Honda HRU 216, a ute, no trailer, a whippersnipper and a blower.
Yep.
And they bang out those residential jobs, and that's all they do, solo. And,
they make a killing doing it too.
They might just do it for beer money, or they might do it full time and actually run a really decent business. A lot of gyms franchises will do it just like that. They just have push mowers or self-propelled mowers and just bang out those small jobs.
Yep.
You can also go to the other extreme and you compare yourself like you've set up with a truck, and at the other end, when you're talking landscaping, you might have an excavator and a posi track and a truck, and you've got $400,000-$500,000 worth of equipment. And the amount of money you turn over isn't necessarily a whole lot different from somebody who's really successful with just a push mower, whip snipper, and a blower. So people will struggle to justify spending $500,000 on equipment or even $50,000 on equipment when they think they can earn the same sort of money with a push mower.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So there is a massive difference at the end of the day.
It's how you personally want to set up your own business. I know there's a fair few guys, like you're saying, they run into the push mower. They might cash, they might not, but all they've got is a push mower. And like you're saying, they still make a lot of money doing it.
I was talking to somebody else this morning, and don't mind shouting him out, Grant Osborne. He and I have a chat every now and then, and he was saying 40-45% expense ratio. So you bring in $100, spend $40 to $45 on expenses.
Yeah, okay, right.
And for a business that's like you or me, and we're worlds apart because I mulch and you catch, but we have some similarities, right? So those expense ratios for somebody who's running a vehicle with a trailer or a truck trailer and a decent size mower, you're probably going to be pretty close to that mark with your expense ratio.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a clue. I turn a blind eye to that.
Yeah, but
I should know all my numbers. It's one of the things about business. You should know all your numbers and the rest of it. But if I look too hard, I'll start buying more stuff.
Well, give or take, you've got to allow for replacing a mower once every 5 years or so. Maybe,
absolutely, yeah.
You might get 10 years out of a Gianni Ferrari, or you might get 5 years out of a Gianni Ferrari. I know with most zero turns and going up from a zero turn up to a tractor or a out front mower like a Gianni Ferrari or any of the other variants, you might push 4,000 hours out of a machine.
Right, yep.
So ballparking, that's what you're going to allow for, is replacing that machine before it becomes a liability on your downtime and your expense ratio.
Yeah, that's right. So some people like turning them over quicker than that too. As soon as they get up to 500 hours, they trade them in and go for another one. What they say is it's less breakdowns then, because they just constantly turn them over.
That's right. And that's been my philosophy, is turning over my machines around 1,000 hours.
Okay, yep.
They've still got a decent value to resell them. They're still in really tidy condition and easy to resell them. So it's worth doing. But I'm looking at that at the moment. I'm going, you know what, there's no reason why I couldn't run a machine for 2,000 hours and still have a resale value and still have a tidy machine.
Yeah. Yeah, well, some people keep, what's that old saying? Grandfather's axe, change the handle 100 times and change the axe head 100 times. It's still the same axe.
Yep.
A lot of people do that. They buy a machine and they'll use it until it's physically not possible anymore, which they get the money out of it. So
there's a guy up in Queensland that was, I believe he's taken a break from this business model, but he was buying old walkers, rebuilding them and selling them.
Okay.
And they look like a brand new machine, function like a brand new machine because he rebuilt them properly.
Okay, done it all properly with brand new gear and the rest of it, yeah.
So there's plenty of people around who will pick up a walker with 1,000 hours on it or even 3,000 hours on it. If you rebuild it and put it to use, it'll work like a new machine. And Gianni Ferrari would be the same thing, right? If you look after it or you replace the parts that need replacing, it's going to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So, I guess going back to the reason I was touching on that is sort of talking about that expense ratio. It's what ticked it over and going, okay, you've just got to factor in that you got to, if you're running a really lean business model with 3 tools and a ute, no trailer, you might get your expense ratio under $40 out of 100. You might be, so I know I hear a couple of guys in Queensland claiming they're down to 10% expenses.
Yeah, okay.
I struggle with that because I'm like, if you're paying insurance and fuel costs, then you're probably going to be over 10%.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but if they've only got a push mower, once you've got your car paid off and your push mower and your whippersnipper, there's not many moving parts.
That's right.
So it's each to their own. I started out push mowing when I first started. All I had was a push mower, a whippersnipper, a trailer, and I didn't even have a blower. I was using a broom.
Nice.
Yeah, I got sick of that pretty quick though.
So did you say you've been in business for 10 years now, or
I think 14.
14 years?
I
Okay,
think,
so
I'm
you're
not too sure.
very similar to me then, because I started in 2010.
Okay, yep.
So, I've done 13 years, approaching the 14 mark.
Yep.
And I at least had a blower when I started and a zero turn.
No, I started with a push mower.
Yeah.
Yep, push mower, and then I was only mulching at the time, and then I was going to buy a zero turn, but I bought another push mower, so we're running two push mowers on the same job, and so it was the same cut as one of the zero turns that I want, and then eventually bought a second hand Ram 50, and yeah, I'm not going back to push mowing.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Why would you?
no, some people like it.
Well, there's still a place for push mowing, right?
Well, absolutely.
You run a zero turn and you still have the Honda or, the Ego now
Yeah.
sitting on the trailer ready for doing those little areas that you can't get your zero turn into, or ready for doing those jobs where somebody wants something particularly done with a push mower instead of a ride-on.
Yeah, I come back from a quote today, and it's got a decent sized backyard, but it's only got a small gate to get through, so I'm going to have to be push mowing that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. The push mowing's not as bad as what I make it out to be. It's not as scary. It's fine. If you're out there and you only have a push mower, you can still make plenty of money.
Well, you go for an Ego these days. It's a quarter of the weight of a Honda, so you can actually push it, and it's self-propelled if you don't want to push it. So it's
Yeah, that new Ego. I've got my eyes on that new Ego. I like that.
yeah, I think they come in around the 30-something kilo mark.
Yeah, I think I was told about 25, but I think that's without a battery. So yeah, 30 kilos. Yeah,
allow 30 just to be sure, and then a little bit extra once you got some grass in the bag.
Yeah. I'm keen on one. I've got to wait for the rains to come back before I get one. Otherwise, I buy it and we'll just sit on the trailer.
Good luck waiting for the rain at the moment. This season's not looking good for that.
Yeah, no, it's been terrible start of the season, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't introduced you properly. Daniel Smith.
Yeah.
And you started in Newcastle. You're in middle of Queensland, sort of still southern end of Queensland.
Yeah.
But yeah, middle on the coast, pretty much. You'd get
right on the coast. Not pretty much, but right on the coast.
Yeah, Hervey Bay's hidden behind Fraser Island, really.
yeah, it's right on the coast. It's right near Fraser Island. If you know anything about Fraser Islands, it's probably the middle part of the Fraser Island. There's once you get out of Hervey Bay, there's nothing for a few hundred kilometres. You got Bundaberg to the north of us, an hour and a half drive, and you got Maryborough, which is 45-minute drive south, and then you've also got after that you've got Gympie, which is another an hour and a half or 2 hour drive. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far enough removed from everyone else that you can do your own thing and set your own rules and a bit of martial law.
No, I used to when I moved up here. It was pretty quiet, and then when COVID hit, everyone started moving up here. The population's it's a lot bigger now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people have hung around in spite of COVID quietening down.
Yeah, well, a few people have moved out. There still seems to be a lot of people coming in, so it's good for Hervey Bay. When I got up here, I think I've been here 6 years now. I went to the shopping centre and it was dead. You'd be lucky to see, it's just a normal sized shopping centre, but you'd be lucky to see 4 or 5 people in it. It was just dead. And now it's just as busy as most shopping centres.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So what's the area that you service around Hervey Bay? I take it you're not just doing the middle of town.
Yeah, Hervey Bay's not really big. So there's pretty much nowhere that you can not access in 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I do pretty much everywhere. Just north of Hervey Bay, I start drawing the line of it. So I don't go out to Burham Heads, which is 45-minute drive. I go to Dundarren, which is 20 minutes out of town.
Yeah, okay.
And then back the other way, which is River Heads. It's the same thing, about 20 minutes either side. So it's everything's real close. And once you start going past those limits, it's all countryside.
So do you find yourself on the outskirts of town doing acreage, or is there even larger properties in town that you still do?
Yeah, a bit of both. There's in some right in the heart of town. There's still 1 acres hidden around the place. There's a fair few of them. Lots of half acres.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new subdivisions popping up though, which most lawns are 400 square meters.
Yeah.
So they're starting to get tighter and tighter.
So you don't get the Guiani onto those ones?
Yeah, absolutely.
You do?
Yeah, I use a small one though, 42-inch deck.
Yeah, okay. So that's similar to what I've run most of my business is a 42-inch deck, and there's surprising the amount of residential jobs you can do with a 42-inch machine.
The 42-inch seems to be a nice size for in town, and then I use the bigger mower on the when I go out of town.
I know if you go middle of Brisbane or middle of Sydney or Melbourne, you're not going to get a 42-inch machine on a lot of properties. But place like Hervey Bay, place like Cooranbong down here, easy. 42-inch machine, do 95% of the properties with it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 42-inch. The 42-inch seems to be a sweet spot.
Like you said, there's the odd job here and there where you go, I can't do it with a 42-inch, so I'll get the push mower out. And if you had a lot of jobs like that, you'd go and get a 32-inch stander because you'd be able to smash a lot of them with a 32-inch.
Yeah. Well, I did consider a 32-inch stander, but after having a high lift, I couldn't go back to not having a high lift. So
couldn't go back to the Catch Pro.
Yeah, I highly considered it, but no, I end up buying a smaller Gianni Ferrari.
Yeah.
If you're going to get into catching, if anyone's listening out there thinking they're going to get into catching, the high lift's a huge priority. If you get a high lift, it changes the catching world.
I've had a number of people ask me about walkers, and they're like, they're pretty expensive. Like you're talking $45,000 if you go a decent spec on an MT series walker with a high lift on it.
Yes.
And I've said to a number of people, I said, you can get the cost down by getting rid of the high dump, but you want to think long and hard about whether you will use that high dump before you make that call.
Yeah, well, I tell people the opposite. I tell them that if they're looking at a Walker or a Gianni Ferrari, get a high lift. I think it's for the Gianni Ferrari, I think it's $7,000 extra to have the high lift, but it's worth every cent. You forget about the cost of it the second you start dumping some lawns. So as you start piling them up in the back there, you forget that it costs you that much. And I'd say it'd be the same as the Walker.
Yeah.
The Walker's got the power lift or the power dump without the high lift, but as soon as you got a high lift, it's so much more productive and you forget about the extra cost in it.
This week, I picked up the Right Stander I 42-inch demo machine. It backed into my black van and looked rather cosy in there. Once using it, I found it nice and nimble and really easy to manoeuvre. Being small, agile and light means that moving your body weight around really gives you increased traction on the drive wheels and turning ability in tight spots. The Aero Core deck delivers a great cut, and I'm about to test it with the Catch Pro.
The other cost associated with that one is having a setup where you can dump it from the high lift as well. And I think with the Walker, you're still limited to the height you can lift with a high lift.
Yeah, the Walker's very similar to my small mower.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they lift up. They don't lift as high as my mower, but there's not too much difference. So with my trailer, you'd be able to. With my truck, you'd be able to dump a high lift Walker into it if I just fold the top side down. So there's not too much difference. My small Gianni Ferrari is very similar to a Walker.
I notice a lot of guys, and Ruben Buchanan, he's a little bit further north than you.
Yeah, he helped me get my second Gianni Ferrari. He did.
Oh, there you go.
Hey.
Well, I know with him and a couple of other guys, you see dumping into a trailer.
Yep.
And I've always gone for a trailer that's got 1,500 mil sides. So from the floor of the trailer to the top of the wall, 1,500 high.
Yep.
Which means it's probably somewhere up around 2 meters high off the ground.
Right.
And most of the guys with the Walkers and the high dump, they run around a 1,200 mil side, or they have a 1,500 with a drop side.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So with the Gianni Ferrari's high lift, it goes up to 2 meters.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The big one does. The small one doesn't, though.
Yeah. So you'd need to come down a little bit on that for the small one.
Yeah, or you just make sure you dump off the gutter all the time instead of off the road. Yeah. I'd change any setup that I had. I'd be changing everything to run a high lift. It makes your life so much easier every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talk highly of the high lifts. Doesn't matter if it's a Walker, if it's a Grillo, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Gianni Ferrari especially. Yeah, if you go high lift, it takes the burden out of catching.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about spending $45,000 on a machine, the high lift isn't a major part of the expense. Yes, certainly noticeable expense there, but it's not as major as buying a $20,000 machine.
No, that's right.
Or a $10,000 machine.
But you'd regret it. If you didn't buy a high lift, you'd end up regretting not doing it. A couple of years later, when you've got the cash flow coming through, you'd regret not doing it.
Well, even running a Catch Pro from Ben, if you lift a full Catch Pro with wet grass, it weighs a bit.
Yeah, yeah. I kept asking Ben to make me a high lift catch pro, but he wouldn't do it for me.
That would be an interesting project.
It would be. I don't know how he could work it.
No.
No.
Yeah, so you did a number of years in Newcastle area before you moved up there in business?
Yeah, absolutely. Possibly 10 years in Newcastle, I think. No, my maths isn't mathsing.
Yeah, I was thinking
maybe
that.
8 years, yeah. But I did it for a while, absolutely.
I'm just thinking back, because I've known of you as long as LMCA has been a thing, and I think that goes back about 2018 or somewhere around there, 2019.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it was 2018 or earlier because I went to Cape York in 2018 and I remember sharing photos from Cape York when I was up there to LMCA.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So we're going back at least that far.
Right.
So I'd say you've been in Queensland from somewhere around there maybe because I'm pretty sure you moved to Queensland around the time LMCA started.
Yeah, well, I definitely didn't have it in Newcastle. I've been here 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know when I joined LMCA. I just stumbled across it one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Newcastle a lot. I didn't catch any grass in Newcastle.
Yeah.
If you found old photos of my setups, I deliberately made it so I had no room to catch grass. I'd tell customers, I'd point to the setup and say, I can't catch grass. I've got nowhere to put it.
So you would have been a mirror image of me. I mulch, I don't catch. Don't ask me to catch or you're going to pay double.
And you had a Dixon as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it looked like a bit of a cowboy setup initially because I was running around in an older vehicle and an unsigned trailer.
Unsigned trailer, yeah. Yeah, I was running Vistaprint magnets.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty good way to start out.
Yeah, cheap and nasty. Don't expect them to last, and they'll destroy your paint. But you can replace them every year. They're cheap and nasty.
Yeah,
they're great.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Especially if you're playing with logo designs or changing the list of jobs you've got on it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can throw them out and start again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So what I'm wondering in terms of your business changes going from Newcastle up to Hervey Bay.
Yep.
When you left Newcastle, do you remember what your numbers looked like back then?
No, not on the internet. I don't remember.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm curious as to whether you think your profit margins and your turnover have changed drastically as a result of moving to Gianni Ferrari, or whether you think running around with a Dixon and a push mower was turning over similar numbers.
Well, I was mulching up here for a good couple of years before I got the Gianni Ferraris.
Okay, yeah. Right? So you're putting up with mulching, Cooch.
Yeah, I was putting up with mulching, and it was getting harder and harder. I bought a BR 800 just so I could clear out the grass easier. And we had 2 backpack blowers running and just trying to clear it out. And it was getting to the stage that I was only going to side shoot or I was going to stop because I just couldn't do the triple cutting anymore. Don't get me wrong, I've got plenty of photos of the Bobcat leaving a great cut. You can't tell it's been mulched. I built a striper kit for the back of it and it was coming up great. So it's not that you can't do it, it's just the extra effort.
Yeah, and there are times like at the moment where if you're mulching, you won't even see the clippings. The wind will blow them away and there's not much there to start with. So you get days like that where it's dry as a bone and there's not much grass to cut. And then you get days where the grass is growing a foot a day.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah. And it's it's one thing that I was surprised at. Once the lawn goes beyond dry and it starts dying, it doesn't mulch anymore because the lawn doesn't mulch and break down. It's already dead. So when you're cutting it, it just shreds it up and then sits on top. I didn't know that until I got the Gianni Ferrari, and because we were just coming to an end of a drought when I got the Gianni Ferrari. But when you're catching it, you're actually picking up all that stuff that isn't mulching and breaking down.
Yeah.
So for the mulch to break down, it's got to be healthy. As soon as it's dead, it doesn't break down anymore.
Turns into hay.
Hay. Yeah. Yeah. Now, as you're asking about the numbers, did I notice any difference? Well, like I just said, when I finally got the Gianni Ferrari, coming right onto the end of a drought. So we didn't have much work when I first bought it. If you had a look at I've got a photo of the Gianni Ferrari and the Bobcat side by side, and you look at the lawn in the background, except for where I was watering, it was dead, completely dead.
So did your wife ask if you had rocks in your head when you spent $50,000 on a Gianni Ferrari and didn't have the work?
I didn't give her the choice. She listens to me. No, it's always a joint decision. What we do is always 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she was sick of the same thing, mowing over it 3-4 times trying to get it and then blowing it down. And I've always liked Gianni Ferraris. I didn't even know they sold them in Australia. And when I found out they sold them in Australia, I watched them on YouTube. And
so
they got
your wife was working with you back then?
Yeah, she's been working with me since when we first started. It was both of us doing it. Then she hopped out of it, and it was me running it for a while.
Yeah,
and she was always in and out of it.
Yeah,
but everything we do with the business is always 50-50.
Yeah, that's good. So,
and you're right.
Yeah, I was going to say we should bring her in on the interview.
No, she won't. She won't come in the interview. She knows too much about LMCA. She doesn't want anything to do with them.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I think I bounced a couple of questions her way at one point when I was putting on female staff member about getting shirts for a female staff member.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I found some nice high-vis pink shirts.
Yeah. There's not too much for female staff. There's a few shirts around, but it's not the same as for guys. It took a little while to find ones that she liked. Same as you.
Mostly the shirts for females are just guys' shirts with a pink colour in them or something, or even no changing at all.
Yeah, well, what we found is there was more guys' shirts with pink on them than there is female shirts. I think there was two at the time. There was 2, maybe 3 designs, but there was heaps more guy designs with pink on them.
Yeah, well, it's probably 3-4 years ago, I'd say, I put on first female staff member, and I think we managed to find a shirt that was specifically for females, so it had a cut that was shaped a little bit different.
Yeah, it took us a little while to find it, and that's the same ones that we sent you.
Yeah.
We showed it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's been good. But, long time coming and well overdue.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't know how many's out there because the shirts we buy, I can't remember the name of it. They mine's lasted 5 years, I think. I can't remember the name of the shirts.
Yeah, I bought a couple of bad workwear that are pink, but there was actually another brand there, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but my local uniform shop stocks them, so they work well.
Actually, she's the reason that we're getting into ego gear.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got a bad back, so running around with the FS240s was taking a toll on her.
Yeah,
and I got one off LMCA. I won the ego blower kit.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm representing them.
Nice.
Yeah, I won the ego blower kit, and we started looking in the electric gear, and we bought the first one, the whip snipper. I don't know if she's seen my review on it. It was only a residential one.
Yeah.
She liked it, but I didn't like it. It didn't have the power. It was oddly shaped. The head on it didn't work. And this new one that they've just bought out, it's pretty much, it feels like a petrol one. The way it revs, the way it works, the two-stroke, you've got the same one.
Yeah,
it feels like
STX
a two-stroke.
4500.
Yeah, the STX 4500, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with the backpack on, I think it weighs about 4 kilos.
Yeah, okay. So how do you find the balance with the backpack? Because I've only put it with the battery on the machine itself.
Yeah, she likes it. I've hardly ever used it. I've only used it a couple of times. And she uses it all the time. I can't get near it. No, she likes it. She'll run. The only time when she's going to run the battery on the whip snipper instead of the backpack is for small jobs.
I might have to grab that backpack link then so that I can get a bit of a feel for how that works.
Yeah, the backpack link's great and comes with a 10 amp battery as well.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's comfortable to use. We weren't too sure if they were going to get in the way, because you've got the cord and everything on coming off the side, going under trees. We weren't going to sure if it's going to get in the way. But once you get used to it, it's like most things. You just start running and you get seat time on it and it's fine.
Yeah, well, I've always hated the backpack options for batteries because I know what it's like using a backpack blower. And I've told this on the podcast so many times, but I'm going to say it again. So had a friend who was a little bit more overweight than me, and take the backpack off him and go to put it on. It was just dripping with sweat and smell.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's very gross, yeah.
And then go from handing the backpack blower from me to a female staff member, and it's like, oh, I'm going to give them my body smells, and that's pretty gross for them.
No, that's not fair to them, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's right.
I hate using backpack options when I can avoid it because of that.
Yeah, but if it's only you going to be using it, yeah,
definitely changes that. So
and the weight's not too bad. You don't notice the weight. It's all the backpack itself's light, so it's only the battery weight on it. And when it's on your back, you don't notice the weight at all.
Yeah, so you run 10 amp battery in that. You said it comes with a 10 amp battery, right?
Yeah, it comes with a 10 amp battery.
And you could put a 12 amp battery on it and still wouldn't make much difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds like a really good option. But if I get any more Ego gear, I'm going to have to get the battery esky that you can charge like 6 batteries in the esky at once. I have to get the 750 watt charger and the esky.
try and charge them up at once. Yeah.
Oh, it's getting to that point where going to have to start thinking about it.
So how do you like the battery gear?
Look, I've been using battery gear since 2019.
Right.
I think it was end of 2018 or somewhere around there. I first bought a battery tool, and I listened to the Canadian podcast back then. He was the first lawn care podcast on the market, Julio Tomei.
Yeah, okay. No, I haven't seen him. Yep.
Lawn care business success.
Yep.
And he was talking about running a battery hedge trimmer. And I can't remember what brand he was trying at that point in time. It might have been Milwaukee or another brand, but he was raving about the hedge trimmer, how good it was to have a battery-powered hedge trimmer because you don't have the heat and the fumes and the vibrations, and it's lighter weight and does a good job of hedging. As good a job as a petrol machine. I was like, that's an instant gateway drug, having the hedge trimmer.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I know I'm going to get the battery hedge trimmer, but I'm not sure which brand. So my rule that I made for myself was I have to find a brand that has a successful battery-powered whippersnipper before I will switch over, because that's more important to me. That's the daily use. And then the hedge trimmer's the, once every other day or once a week or something like that, it comes out. So I trialed a still whippersnipper and I wasn't happy with it.
Okay.
And then
which model was that?
I think it's off the top of my head, it's like an FSA 96 or something.
Okay. Yep.
And I wasn't happy with it. I thought about going up in models because you go up to their 1.3 series, but in order to do that back in 2018, 2019, it was a umbilical cord.
Yep.
So I was just like, nah, not doing it. I went and tried Husky, and they had the previous version of the 520, which I think was a 535 or 5. I can't remember what the model number was, but it was good. It was a little bit underpowered compared to a 25cc whippersnipper, but it was still powerful enough to do the maintained work and got a 2-hour runtime.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And lightweight too. So I looked at that and I was like, it's comparable to a 25cc in weight, if not slightly lighter, and runs for 2 hours on one battery. So I went to work with it, and I was running it on commercial properties where I could run one battery on charge while I'm using the other battery and just run it back to back for a whole day.
Yep.
And that first machine, I ran it for about 2 or 3 years, running jobs like that where it was just running 10, 12-hour days.
Yeah, okay.
Back to back. So I was converted on the spot, and I still have petrol whippersnippers. I still had them in regular use back then, because when you're doing smaller residential jobs, and I started with 2 batteries, I couldn't always get through a whole day with 2 batteries. And it's like, do I buy more batteries? I just pull the petrol whippersnipper out if I didn't make it through a whole day.
Yep.
Initially, that's how I approached it, and the battery gear was an instant winner for me. It was just nicer to use, and I'm left-handed, so for people who are left-handed, you use a petrol whip and you get burnt on the exhaust.
Yep.
So battery, you don't get burnt.
The
vibrations.
Right. Yeah, you don't get the vibrations, you don't get burnt. And the other thing with the battery technology, it's changing quickly.
Yeah.
So this new Ego gears, worlds above their old Ego gear, and it's only going to get better.
The new commercial Ego gear that's come out, every tool I've used, I'm like, yep, that is a hands down. It's just a winner. It's improved. It works well. It does what it says it's going to do. It works well with run times, everything about it. I've got nothing bad to say about them.
Yeah, no, I'm impressed with their new gear. I've only got the what is it, the SCX 4500. I've only got that out of the new gear, but it's just like a 2-stroke. It works. It's powerful. It works. It runs great. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, well, I like the handheld blower at the moment, the 1300 meter an hour handheld blower.
Yeah, I've got that one. Yeah.
Yeah. That there is a game changer when it comes to handheld blowers. I've had a couple of other handheld blowers before I got that.
Yep.
That is the most powerful handheld blower I've used. And I'm not in a hurry to buy a backpack battery blower because their specs are not that much better than that handheld blower.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's the bonus to that one is you can run double the battery.
Yeah, so definitely going to get more runtime. That's a massive advantage.
Yes.
But you look at any of the other brands as well, and you got a little bit of a gain over that with a couple of brands in terms of the Newton meters of torque or the airspeed, but it's not a big enough gain to compare it to, say, a BR800 or any of the other machines that are in that sort of size with the petrol backpack blowers.
No, that's right. I was impressed, really impressed with the handheld Ego. What is it, 1,300 square meters?
Yeah,
is that what it is. Yeah, I was really impressed with that one when I got it, and after a little while having, I realised we hardly ever used the BR800. So the BR800 still comes out, and there's probably 1 or 2 lawns a day that it gets used on because they're bigger and you need the more power.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much. I just sold it was still brand new. I just sold my still handheld blower.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'd go for another handheld blower unless it's the Ego.
Yeah, well, any of the battery handheld blowers are going to do well, but the Ego 1,300 metre an hour one, it's the best one I've used.
Yeah, okay, yep.
I would say at the moment, for the work I do, the BR600 is the backpack blower I'm using. I don't have the BR800 because I've had 2 BR600s forever.
Okay.
And I'm still using one of them. And when it comes to moving a lot of leaves at once or anything that's a little bit wet, that's when the backpack petrol blower comes out. Otherwise, the handheld battery blower every time.
Yeah. I've got a BR600 as well, and that's only gets started sometimes. It never comes on the gear anymore. That's just sitting in the shed.
Yeah,
the BR800 heaps more powerful than that. But
yeah,
they hardly the petrol blowers hardly get used now. They'll go for sometimes they'll go for weeks without being used.
Yeah. Well, if you're talking about autumn leaves falling or a car park that you need to blow out or, like I said, wet grass, that's where they make the difference. And I've not seen a battery blower that can keep up with a petrol backpack blower when it comes to moving wet grass or big piles of leaves.
Yeah, that's right. But the technology is changing, so they will bring out a bigger model.
I'm watching and hoping.
What I'm real surprised on how they know starting the equipment, the electric equipment.
Yeah.
And all my gear starts first full real easy. But even then, just you pick the blower up and you just hit the button and you go. The electric gear is real great for that. And then if you're walking into like a pool area and you're going under a place that doesn't need to be blown down, you take your finger off the throttle and it shuts off. You don't have it idling and blowing leaves and stuff around where you don't want it.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't matter which battery tool you pick up. The fact that you don't have to pull start it is a massive bonus.
Oh, massive, yeah.
But there's 2 tools that I have found use them on a ladder.
Okay.
And the petrol tools invariably stall as you're climbing the ladder.
All right, okay.
So you end up trying to pull start a tool, and the work health safety requirements, you want to have 4 points of contact on that ladder.
I never thought about that before. Yeah, so roof work, the battery gear would be heaps better.
Yeah, roof work, ladder work, hedge trimming, chainsaws. And this is where the last episode I just did with James Lafiardis, we talked about this as a work health safety concern because battery gear doesn't require you pull start it and it doesn't make as much noise. It actually makes you a little bit complacent occasionally. So a hedge trimmer or a chainsaw can be, and they are safer, I would say, overall, but they can be a risk because you can become a little bit complacent because they're just that easy. Pull the trigger.
Yeah, well, someone on LMSAA was explaining it after that guy he cut his arm with the chainsaw, the electric chainsaw.
Yeah.
And he explained it really well that because there's no big loud 2-stroker in your ear, it's you don't think it's going to kick like a normal chainsaw, but it's still a chainsaw. It still runs like a chainsaw. It's not blaring in your ear when you're using it, so it gives you a false sense of security.
I've got the Husky T540 battery saw. It's the top handle one. So I think T540 is for top handle,
right?
And battery powered. It's comparable to a 40cc petrol machine.
Okay.
So it's got grunt.
Yep.
and being a top handle machine, it makes me a little bit complacent because I use it for pruning.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and because it doesn't have the two-stroke scream in your ear,
Yeah.
you don't think it's as dangerous, but it's equally as dangerous.
Well, almost more so in that sense. But I still will go back and say with a battery hedge trimmer and a battery chainsaw, they have really good safeties in place.
Okay.
And for the most part, they are safer than a petrol machine because when you let go of the trigger, the chain or the blades actually stop. Whereas if a petrol machine is idling and the clutch is a little bit sticky, you
Right.
keep spinning.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So they do have both directions there. Some safety that's better and some that just makes you a little bit complacent. But yeah, overall, battery gear, last 4 or 5 years that I've been using it, I'm not looking back. I'm going forward and using battery everywhere I can. I've gone to the point of buying a battery powered buggy. So, what they call in America, the side by side.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so doing a large commercial site, it's like, all right, I don't want to be walking and I can actually measure the kilometres on the buggy. So I'm doing anywhere between 5 kilometres and 15 to 20 kilometres in a day on that buggy.
Yeah, right. That's it. You don't want to walk that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's battery powered Polaris and huge savings with running battery power to do that instead of running petrol.
Have you tried whippersnipping as you're driving?
No.
No?
I know with Walker, you could actually buy an attachment. It's like a blade edger that goes on the side of your Walker deck, and you set it up if you're doing a long footpath, and you could do that edging really quickly with the Walker. I've never actually bought one. I looked at it, but I wasn't convinced that it was a worthwhile tool.
Yeah, I've seen a guy in America who made it so it could hook onto any zero turn. I've
Yeah.
seen one similar thing like that, and I don't know if it's worth it. I'm not too sure. It might work in some, like if you've got big long fence lines, it might work in some cases, but
Yeah.
I'm not too sure. I think it'd be more of a hassle using it than actually using normal whippersnipper.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different variations because I think the one you're talking about was made for doing flat edging, whereas I'm talking about one that's actually a blade, like it's a rotating disc blade for doing vertical edges.
Yeah, all right, I'm with you now. Yeah.
Yeah, so each to their own. They might possibly help somebody out on a really big fence line or a really long footpath or whatever they're doing with it. But I looked at it and I was like, nah, that's not for me. But yeah, I'm still watching and hoping to find a good battery-powered zero-turn or stander. There are a couple of options out there now. Greenworks have got the battery stander, and that's actually competitively priced compared to some of the other battery-powered zero-turns.
Yeah, well, the battery. I'm waiting for Gianni Ferrari to bring out a battery zero turn. So like the Walker style, but a battery one. I'm keen for all the electric gear in the next few years to come through.
Yeah, well, looking at electric cars, there's a number of people, and I think it's more political than actually scientific, unfortunately. Number of people like electric cars are not that environmentally friendly, and they apply the same rule to electric whippersnippers and blowers and whatever, right? It's just like that's not that environmentally friendly. And it's like, yeah,
I'm not worried about the environment. I want the ease of use and the power.
yeah.
It's things are changing. The electric gear. If you look at, like you're saying, if you're looking at electric cars, once that trickles down into your electric lawnmower gear, they're getting 1,000 horsepower, and you can drive them around the street like you don't have it. So once that trickles down into lawnmowers, you're going to have 100 horsepower lawnmowers that you're just driving around.
Well, I think the difference comes when you go from cars to motorbikes, and there's a few electric motorbikes out now that are battery powered, but when you start going to lightweight machinery like a motorbike, you have a massive trade-off in terms of runtime or travel distance range, as they call it in a car.
Yeah.
Right. So a typical electric car now is aiming for sort of that 400 to 500 kilometre range on the battery.
Right.
And that's usable. Even in Australia, you can do a trip from Newcastle to Brisbane, stopping over with 2 charge stops, and you'll get there. And almost do it on 1 charge stop, but that's really stretching it.
And it depends on what car you got. Yeah, once the electric trickles down into the lawnmowers, they'll be able to have 8-hour run times, and it's sort of I can see it replacing petrol. Now, how many moving parts are in a petrol engine compared to the electric?
Yeah, the maintenance is a winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Winner. But going back to the weight ratio, when you're talking a motorbike, the average travel range on a battery-powered motorbike is really limiting. A petrol motorbike will traditionally get 200 to 300 kilometres if it's a road bike.
Right.
A battery-powered road bike is lucky to get sort of 100, 150 kilometres. There's one or two that might get close to 200 kilometres, but you get range anxiety when you're down to 25% battery left.
Yeah, you would.
So that's a problem with motorbikes, and it's also a problem with some tools that we use. So, for instance, what you're saying, a all-day runtime on a zero turn is a reality. You can see that with the Mean Green. They are capable of doing an all-day runtime, but not all of the zero turns are claiming all-day runtime. Some of them are around 4 or 5 hours use, and it's like, well, some people will get a full day out of 4 or 5 hours use because you're only doing 20 minutes at a time on the machine.
Yep.
But I think aiming for 6 to 8 hours use on a zero turn is going to be getting you closer to all-day runtime, and then bring that back a notch and look at the Ego Select cut. I think we're talking a 10 amp battery gets you about 40 to 50 minutes runtime on that.
Yeah, okay.
So if you want to run an Ego Select cut and you don't have charging available for you during the day, then you're probably going to need, say, 4 or 5, maybe 6 batteries to get through the day.
Yeah. Well, that's the biggest downside of the electric gear is they put their price of the batteries. That over time, just like everything else, once it's been out for a while, over time the price of the batteries will come down. A new design of battery will come out, something will change.
Well, there are a couple of mowers, like self-propelled or push mowers now. I think Palenque is one of them that claims you can get pretty close to a full day out of one battery.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So looking at Ego, I think the commercial one takes 2 12-amp hour batteries. That's going to go really good.
The Crest, is that the new one that's popping up everywhere with his trailer? Yeah, they're getting real good run times.
Well, they've made a lot of bold claims there. I haven't seen them in use yet. It'll be interesting to see as they roll out because they have got dealers in Australia now. So once we see people using them, then we'll get some real-world feedback on them.
Yeah, and real fast charge rate as well.
Yeah.
Recharge rate. I've heard some scary thoughts of their pricing though.
If you buy the charging station for them that does I think it's 8-minute or 12-minute recharge on their batteries.
Right.
I think it's $15,000 or $16,000 to buy that charging station that sits in your vehicle.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So, and then you've got to recharge it overnight when you get back home.
Yeah.
But that's a big outlay for a charging station. And I don't know whether it'll charge their zero turn because that'd be interesting. If you could recharge the zero turn while it's parked on your trailer, that could possibly be
between jobs.
Could be worth the $15,000.
That's a lot of fuel though.
Look, I know it's a lot of fuel, but we use a lot of fuel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you look at it as the cost of fuel per job, it's worth it.
Yeah, well, I'm all for electric gear. I can see its downsides, but I can also see that every time a new company comes up or like Ego releases something, everything's getting better and better. Yeah. Petrol's been out for a long time. Yes, this stuff's getting better, but the speed of what's getting better is just getting faster and faster.
But the other thing that I talk about, and you might not want to talk about this, but robotic mowers. I've found with the robotic mower, the cost of ownership of the robotic mower looks a little bit scary because you're usually looking at what it can do on a residential property where you might be charging $80 for a job. And you go, oh, well, if the robotic mower is going to cost $4,000 or $10,000, is it worth it? And it's like, no, it's not worth it. But if you look at it on a larger scale where it's a job that you do, like I'm saying commercial work where I'm there anyway, I can reduce my labor cost by the cost of the machine. So over the period of 1 year, the labor saving covers the cost of the machine. And the machine's still there the next year, cutting away, doing this job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about the robotic mowers. I like what is it right? He's got the full zero turn robotic ones going.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I asked him if he can pull up to a job and have the mowers come off the trailer, so he doesn't even need to get out, sit in the air conditioning. He said they're not quite set up for that. But, yeah. In theory, they might be able to be a good time saver, but it's a lot of technology. I love it. Don't get me wrong.
I tested the FJ Dynamics one a couple of weeks ago.
Which one's that one? I don't know that one.
So it's like the right in terms of how it functions. It's a zero turn.
Right.
But it's fully automated. So what you do with the FJ Dynamics, and let me be very clear for anyone listening to me at the moment, the FJ Dynamics is not suitable for use in Australia at this point in time. It's not functioning the way it's supposed to function, but it was really interesting to do the demo and to see the potential application for this.
Yep.
I think Wright's going to do it better before FJ Dynamics gets there, but they both looking very interesting, and I've noticed a couple of other brands are already doing this as well. Toro's got something that they were demonstrating over in America this last week. So the FJ Dynamics, what you do is you turn up to your job.
Right.
You have a marker where your beacon goes. So your GPS station is a beacon. You put that on the exact spot where the mark is. So you'll probably drive a stake into the ground, little white post or something that's at ground level. You put your GPS directly above that post every time. You switch the mower on, get it off your trailer, you park it near the start point, and then you tell it to go into autonomous mode, and it does 2 laps around the perimeter, and then it just cuts stripes back and forward, cuts the whole area.
Yeah, okay. That'd be handy.
So
less employees.
They say that you can put as many maps in there as you want. So you could literally go, all right, I've got 100 properties, I've got 100 maps in there, and I've got every time I turn up to one of those properties, put the GPS beacon in place, get the mower off the trailer, press start, go and do the whip snipping in the edges.
Yeah. That'd become handy, real handy. If it can be as good as what Tesla can drive, that'd become real handy.
It's almost there. I think
it's almost there.
I think the FJ Dynamics is not ready for consumption in Australia, but
yep.
The moment we get one that is ready for consumption in Australia, you're talking 42-inch zero turn from FJ Dynamics was around the mid $40,000 price range.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So
if you were willing to give up catching...
Well, yeah, I don't know about
that. That would be a serious labour-saving device for you.
Absolutely, yeah. It'd save you a lot of money in 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could run solo. You could say to the wife, you know what, you don't have to come to work today. I've got it all.
Yeah. I'll have to speak to Gianni and Ferrari, see if they'll make one of the high lift for me.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
It would. It'd be good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the future is looking pretty bright in terms of that. It's a matter of going, well, are we going to see contractors doing the same thing in 10 years' time, or are they all going to be running around with autonomous zero turns?
Yeah, I don't know about all of them because there's a cost, and then there's also a fee. Some customers, they're a bit, I don't want to use the word paranoid, but they're having something moving around with the blade spinning in the backyard with the dogs and the rest of it. They might not like it.
Well, definitely my experience with the FJ Dynamics, it is not ready, and that fear is real. So if you go back and look for the video of me testing it, I stood in front of the machine.
Yep.
And it came up to probably close to 1 foot in front of me before it stopped.
Yeah, okay.
I was nervous.
They're a big machine, aren't they? 42 inches, but they're a big bulky machine.
Well, it's got a lot of stuff on that. So It looks like a 42-inch zero turn, but it's got the ROPS bar with the camera and the satellite stuff all sitting on top of the ROPS. So it's got a bit of stuff sitting there and a little screen sitting in front of you that you look at to program everything as well. So, yeah, it's pretty imposing when it's moving towards you without without anyone on it.
Yeah. Do they have a kill switch on it? Like remote kill switch?
Yeah, you've got all those sort of safeties there. But if you're standing in front of it like I was to test that its radar stops before it runs you over.
Yeah. There's a video of the Volvo, someone doing that, standing in front of a Volvo with the autonomous stopping, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And it runs into the one of the Volvo reps, runs straight into him.
Yeah, well, I made sure I tested this and it worked. But the other factors that are there is there's obstacles it won't see. So, if you hate picking up dog poo, this thing's not going to stop for a dog poo. And if you're using a zero turn, like wind your clock back to when you were using a real zero turn instead of a Gianni. If you turn on a hill, what do? You make sure your machine's facing uphill as you turn. If you're facing downhill, you've got no control over your steering or your drive wheels.
Yeah, as soon as they start spinning, you've got no control. Yeah.
The autonomous machine doesn't understand that.
Yeah, okay.
So if it's turning and it's on a slope and there's water at the bottom of the slope, it may not survive.
Yep. But if you program for each individual yard, you'll be able to make sure there's nothing there before you start.
Look, algorithms are such an easy thing to work with. So the more money gets invested in that area, the sooner those things are going to be a reality and useful. And, it's not just for a sports field.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's where they'll start. And then once they got that down pat, then they'll start going to these smaller yards and then...
Yeah, well, a lot of the robotic mowers that I've played with are best suited to flat sports field type cutting. That's where they excel. Yep. You put them in something outside of that where they've got tree coverage or slopes or anything else that's a bit tricky, multiple areas to look after. They've got ways of handling those things, but that's where they start to lose some of their ability.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, we've talked a lot about robotic mowers. We really need to be talking about you and what you're doing.
What do you want to know?
I want to give you an update on the Ego commercial pole hedges. The short pole hedger has a fixed head which makes it a lot like the standard handheld hedger, quite nimble and great for shaping small hedges and topiary. The standard pole hedger has the articulating head that I thought I might be able to swap onto the short pole hedger. I've had a closer look and I found that this does not work. Even if you took the liberty to modify the mounting, the articulated lever would catch on the handhold, so it's really not possible, Overall, both these hedges do a great job on hedges, and I have found the blade speed, shaft drive rather than a direct drive, and the runtime all make for a great commercial package. They are replacing my previous hedges, and they are the best I have used.
Is there any other topics that you really want to draw attention to?
If you're starting out and you don't know your pricing, don't be ashamed to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't know how to price it, you best go and ask some people. Call them up. I've got a phone call every now and again from someone that's only just starting. They usually fake it and then pretend they're a customer, but you can smell them straight away that they're what they're doing. Have a chat with them and get people to quote a lot higher. There was one put up this morning that they were only doing $30 an hour. I seen, and there was another guy in Hervey Bay. He's doing $30 an hour. You can't make money that. The old saying is people are willing to go out of business before you. But if everyone can educate people to make sure you get what you need to get to stay in business and thrive. Remember, you're not in business to make a wage. You're in business to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not just doing it, like you said earlier, you're not just doing it for beer money. You're not just doing it so you're not working for someone else. You're trying to make more money than that you can from a normal job.
Yeah, definitely.
So when people are asking how much they charge for it, give them a hand. Let them know. Don't badmouth them because they don't know. Everyone started somewhere, and prices change. Prices change fast. Here in Hervey Bay, since COVID, you used to be able to buy a house for $200,000 to $300,000. Now you're likely to get a piece of shit house for $600,000. And for all lawnmowing guys here, to them to be able to go out and buy a house or keep up with the repayments of the interest rates, they've got to jack up their prices. If everyone starts coming in at $30 an hour, they're just going to slowly go out of business, and it hurts us. So if anyone from Hervey Bay is listening, what you need to do is put up your prices. I quoted one today that 3-4 years ago I would have been lucky to get $55 for it, getting $110, and they love the idea of it. Yeah. So just at the moment, we need to double our prices to keep up with fuel prices, interest rates, and you name it.
You're spot on there, and doesn't matter whether you're Hervey Bay or Newcastle, the same issue applies. And
absolutely.
Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth. I don't know about Perth actually, but
their prices are pretty good. I tried quoting some of the prices they do, and I don't know, Perth's got a good racket there.
Can you put a cylinder mower on the front of your Gianni Ferrari?
You used to be able to. They had a cylinder mower deck. There's still some floating around. Can't buy them anymore though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but to touch on what you're saying, I want to throw a bit extra in there. I know you see a lot of people come in at $30 an hour, $40 an hour, $50 an hour, and let's face it, $50 an hour in today's climate is not enough.
No, that's correct. If you're coming from a job and you're getting $25, $28 for an hour, it sounds like it's a lot. But once you've bought your car and you've got your insurance and your equipment, and then you've got to go out and do the work, and you might be on the job for 20 minutes. If you're doing $50 an hour, how do you work that?
Well, I'll put two things forward there. One is that when you're quoting against Daniel Smith, I'll help you to quote against Daniel Smith so that you do a good job and you win a job over Daniel. But what you need to know is that if you go in and you quote that job that he's doing for 110 and you quote it at $55, $60, the customer's going to go, oh, yeah, I'm saving money. But in 6 months' time, the customer's going to go, oh, you know what? I think I'll get Daniel Smith back.
Yeah, well, there's an old saying, if you're getting all your jobs that you're quoting, your prices are too cheap.
Yeah.
Yep. And the way I see it, if I find out that there's lawnmower guys that are making more money for the same type of job as I'm doing, well, I should be quoting what they're doing.
Yep.
Exactly. Instead of trying to undercut people, if you realise that they're getting $110 for a job that you're only quoting $88, well, then you need to bring up your prices because that way you make more money. Stop trying to underquote people. Try and overquote them if you need to.
Yeah. So the point I want to make here is if somebody takes one job off Daniel Smith, it probably doesn't hurt Daniel Smith too much. But one job that's a residential job, it hurts the industry. It brings the overall pricing down. Then that customer comes back and says, oh, can you do it? But you're charging too much because the last guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I've got in the habit now when they mention they had a lawnmower guy, I ask where he is. And so many of them at the moment, they either say they don't know or they're gone out of business or they've sold their business.
I had a request for gardening today and I was like, sorry, can't do it. Too far. It's out of my area. Oh, but I really need you and you're the right person for the job. And I was like, yeah, sorry. I can find you somebody else who's going to be as good as me. But I can't do it. And just by saying no and then asking a couple of questions, they come out with the last guy quoted.
yeah, that's right. Yep.
And it's like, okay, that they're looking for cheaper or they're looking for better. But at the end of the day, they don't know until somebody who has experience in the industry comes along and helps them to do it right. And this is where a massive problem comes in when you go from that residential job that was $55, $60 that should really be $110, $120, and you apply it to a commercial property. And if you've got somebody like you or me or a franchise doing a commercial job, you're not talking $50, you're talking several $100s or thousands of dollars worth of work. And that commercial site will drop a decent contractor for a cheaper price and then they'll get burnt.
Yeah.
And that happens so many times where a good contractor loses a large contract to a cheaper price. And then 6 months later, hey, Daniel.
Yeah, that's right.
We need you back because that other guy was only doing it for beer money.
And when they call you back after they've got rid of you for someone else, always put the price up. Always.
Well, the thing is that really hurts.
Punish them.
It really hurts the industry and it hurts everybody involved.
Yeah, that's right. Because then they expect that other people do it as cheap.
So if you're starting out in this industry, you are going to get help if you ask for help. You're definitely going to be better off by asking for help instead of going in thinking it's that you're too ashamed to ask for help or admit what you don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Ask for help. Ask for help. Ask how much the equipment costs. There's one thing, if you're going to use a Gianni Farras and Walkers, they're not cheap. But Gianni Farras I've got $50,000. They go right up to $88,000. I actually don't know how, because they go up to a bigger model with air conditioning cabins and the rest of it. So I don't actually know how much they are. But if you don't know how much they are and you think you're in the market to get one, you're going to have a rude shock. So if someone comes up with a bit of like the van tracks, there's a few of them floating around now, ask them how much are they? And they'll tell you. The only guys that don't tell you, the ones that they're either embarrassed they paid so much or they don't want to admit they paid so much.
Well, the thing is, a new person starting out can hurt the industry or they can learn from the guys in the industry so that when they are approaching quotes, they're gaining experience along the way. They're getting to learn how to do the work properly and they're getting to learn how to do the pricing properly. And then when it comes time for them to quote against Daniel Smith, they're more likely to, instead of damaging the industry, help build the industry. And regardless of who wins that quote, you're both heading in the same direction. And that client is likely to get a contractor who does a good job at a fair price.
Yeah. Well, I like it. This is going back in another story. It's going back in Newcastle. I was quoting a job. It was a half decent size for Newcastle. I had the 0-turn at the time. But the lady that called up, there was me, a Jim's Mullen franchise, and a VIP franchise. and I knew what they were going to quote, and I quoted a good $35 dearer than what they did. But then I just explained myself that I was new at the time, and I've got 2 young kids, and you're best off going with me. But if you want, go for them because they're cheaper. And I walked away, and I got the job, and I like doing that. I like getting jobs that I've quoted dearer than everyone else because it's a bragging right.
Well, I think more than a bragging right, and that's good, right? Like it makes you feel good when you go, okay, I know I'll quote a dearer, but I'm going to win the job anyway. But it's a sign that you have confidence, and they show respect of that confidence that you have.
Yep.
You can go in and say, you know what, this is why you're going to pay a little bit more with me, and they go, well, we want you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you give them a story. If you give someone a story, they're likely to remember, or they might relate to your story. There's another one. If you give them a story, I always try and make customers laugh. It can be as something about dog poo on your hands or on your feet. You try and make someone laugh, and don't be scared. Don't be afraid to lose a job. There's always another one. Unless you really like that job and there's something about the customer you like or the lawn, you want that lawn, then you can bring your price down because you want that job. But there's always going to be another job. So if you quote it and it's $88 and it was only meant to be a $66 job, that's fine. You'll get another job, another opportunity. There's plenty of lawns around. Well, not so much at the moment because they're all dead, but when it's raining, there's plenty of work around.
Yeah, look, that has got to be the most challenging thing right now. The climate and the economic climate are both against people that are starting out in business right now.
Absolutely.
So even people who have been in business as long as you or I are going to find it challenging at the moment. And people who have been in business 1 or 2 years, there are people shutting down because of the problems that they're facing at the moment. On the other hand, there's people who are coming into this industry right now with the right information, with groups like LMCA or a franchise supporting them and hitting the market really strongly. And this is what I have found to be true everywhere you go. When you're talking about economics, if you can do that in the worst situation, then as the climate improves, as the economic climate improves, your business goes skyrocketing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they're starting now with the not much rain, I know what it's like down where you guys are, but up here there's not much rain at all.
Yeah, it's dry down here too.
It is it? Yeah. If it's dry now and you can still manage to struggle on through until it rains, when the rains come back, your business will blow up overnight, and that's literally what happens after a big drought. Well, hopefully it doesn't go to a drought, but after long periods of no rain, once that rain hits, no one can keep up with their own lawn, let alone the customers they've got.
I went and did a quote 2 weeks ago. I looked at the job, and the poor lady's in her early 90s or thereabouts, hasn't had a contractor turn up for a long time.
Right.
So the other guy, I don't know where he is.
Yep.
If he's listening to this, come and talk to me. I'd be happy to give the job back to you, but you're going to have to turn up. But I sat down with her and I said, look, what's the goal? What do you need? What do you want? And what do you expect from a contractor? And I convinced her that spending more money and getting the lawn cut more often in the middle of drought was a good idea. Okay. And I'm not trying to rip the old lady off. I was literally looking at ways to help her, not to rip her off.
Yep.
But I said to her, I'm offering you a better service. I'm offering you consistency, and I'm suggesting that in order for your yard to get looked after well, instead of fortnightly cuts for 20 cuts a year, we need to go in the busiest growth period up to weekly cuts.
Yeah.
And we need to do extra things like actually fertilising and watering and doing things to make sure that you get the most advantage out of your yard. You've invested a lot in it, and so this little bit of extra investment now is going to make sure you appreciate the yard 10 times more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And what's the point in spending money on a contractor to come do it if you're only going to get it done when it's overgrown?
Yeah. Or it's only going to get cut and turned into a dust bowl because you're not putting any water on it when it's dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Put a little bit of water, a little bit of fertilizer on it. And not everyone has to do that. Not everyone wants to do it, but she's invested in her yard. She wants it to look nice. Then these are the things to do.
Yeah, when I'm quoting, I like to say that I try and make all my customers' lawn look the best in the street, and I'm not happy that if they're not the best in the street. Now it's hard at the moment because of the no rain, but when it is raining, I like to have the customers' lawn the best in the street.
Yep. Well,
And
I
then,
can make them look the best in the street whilst mulching.
yeah,
Gotcha.
like you're not up here, I'd show you wrong.
Oh, look, it's
No,
all good. I appreciate that there are contractors like you out there, and that there are contractors in my area that can do a good job and they catch grass and they do things differently to me. I'm not sitting there going, "Oh, I hate the competition," or the competition's going to make me look bad. It's like, no, the better the competition is, the better the industry is.
absolutely, yeah. When the neighbours see someone getting their lawn mowed, they want their lawn mowed, and not all neighbours get along, so they'll call someone else, not the same person.
That's right.
So, so Harvey, from north of Brisbane right up until up into Cairns, I don't know how much further high it goes, most people catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, the majority of lawns around here are done by walkers, or they've got a catch pro. I'm surprised how many catch pros are up here. The majority of them catch. The bigger lawns, not so much. There's only me doing the bigger lawns.
Yeah.
Because not everyone's as stupid as me trying to catch big lawns. But it's just the type of grass most people catch up here.
You said it though. Not everyone's as stupid as you. But what I've noticed, talking to a few contractors up the Queensland coast, you go to somewhere like Townsville and it's pretty dry there. Like for a North Queensland area, it's really dry.
Yep.
You go to Cairns and it's really wet.
Yeah, okay.
So different approach from contractors. And I actually talked to a couple of contractors in Townsville, several, and there's, I think, a few of them are starting to realise they've got similar conditions to Perth and that they can take advantage of that.
Yeah, okay.
So move to cylinder mowing, set up irrigation systems, encourage customers to pursue a better lawn rather than an average lawn.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
The more people look after lawns, the more other people look after lawn. It's a domino effect.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, Daniel, I'm mindful of your time and sort of getting to family time here. It's 6:30 p.m. Why don't we talk about what you want to do in the future? So
in the future,
we're in 2013. I'm assuming you want to stay in business for. You don't look like you're ready to retire just yet.
No, if I could retire today, I would. I'm about $10 million short though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No,
even if I had that 10 million, I'd probably still want to go out there and sort of do maybe 1 day a week or 3 days a week, just so that I'm not sitting at home with my wife non-stop. I can actually go, hey, Cherie, I'm going to do something else for a little while. It's not just motorbike riding.
No, I think I'd come up with a different hobby. I like mowing, don't get me wrong. I don't think I'll do much anything else, but yeah, if I could retire today, I would, but I can't, so I'm stuck mowing. Now, in the future, at the moment, I've just bought a dethatcher, one of the Predator dethatchers.
Nice.
And I've just bought a Billy Goat corer.
Is there anyone else in Hervey Bay doing lawn treatments?
Yes, there's a couple of them.
Renovations? Yeah. Okay.
There's one in particular. What I've done is, because there's not much rain happening, I need to make money because there's not much in grass at the moment. So,
exactly.
And some say, well, same as coring. But my theory, and this is only a theory, is the people that want it cored and dethatched, they're already looking after their lawn. They're already watering it and keeping it healthy, and they want to keep it more healthy. It doesn't matter how much a drought we want to go into.
Now, when you've got a successful lawn care business and you're going, maybe I need to diversify and find some extra stuff to make income when the lawn's not growing, I'm guessing you'll do this, but I know for me, I look at it and I go, okay, if I'm going to add a service here, I want to make sure I'm making more money on that service. And going back to cowboy days, I was like, all right, I'm doing gutters, but I'm not doing gutters for the same price I'm doing lawns, because if a customer asks me to do their gutters, it's like fixed price, really expensive. If you don't like it, get somebody else to do it. And so I'm guessing the same thing with doing a lawn renovation, be going, okay, this is a premium service I'm adding to my business.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, spot on right there. Like, anyone can go and start gardening and wood chipping and the rest of it, which I've got a tipper truck, so in theory I should just do that. But it's exactly what you said. I want to be making more money if it's not doing what I regularly do, not making less money. Yeah. But I don't know if I'll get the Western Australia prices.
Well, what did Keith Kalfas say down back a couple of years? He said, aim to get 10, 20% of the quotes that you do. So charge enough that you only get 10 to 20% of the quotes and you'll be earning decent money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. And Luke Smith, I watch him a lot.
Yeah.
He's a competitor of yours now, isn't he?
Yeah. He was my friend. Now he's my enemy.
Yeah,
No, we're still
he's
friends.
good. Still friends. Yeah, no, he's got heaps of information on his website. He's not
does.
afraid to tell people how it is and how it works for him. And so I'm going to try and copy him. I'll just screenshot his website and put it on mine.
Okay, nice.
Yep.
He's been talking about helping people on the East Coast to do a similar sort of business model to what he's doing. So, it's a good idea.
Yeah. No, I won't just copy and paste. No, I'm not like
that. Seriously, aside from the copy and paste joke, I think it's certainly a business model that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it seems to work well for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know he's in Western Australia and they got different pricing, but if they change it down a bit, just bring the prices down a little bit, might be able to make it work.
It's not just different pricing; they're almost not human. Nah, they're great. Love them. I really enjoyed the trip over to West Australia last year, and it was great to see how different they are over there. But a lot of the strategies, like you say, like the premium services, is something you can add anywhere, and particularly when you're experiencing dry climate like we've got at the moment, that's comparable to what they have over there. And all of a sudden people are going, I want irrigation or reticulation.
Yep.
So, that's awesome.
So that's what I'm looking at the moment. Anthony talked me into getting the plugger instead of the bigger models. So the bigger models are just a bit more, they're just harder to use, not as user-friendly and not that doesn't show up till Friday. So I don't know if it's going to be a mistake buying it or not. So I'll give it a go.
Well, it's only a mistake if you decide that it didn't work for you, right? If you find a way to make it work for you, then there's plenty of ways you can do that.
Yeah, well, that's it. You get out. You get out what you put in, isn't it? Is that saying?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I've been looking at scarifiers at the moment, and people on LMCA will go, no, you haven't. You've only looked at the Makita. Well, that's kind of a useful tool, actually, but it's not in the same league as a petrol scarifier.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And it is very much a case of going, well, you're offering a premium service. So you buy a scarifier or a core aerator plugger, then, you are going to want more per hour or more per job than what you're doing if you're just going in there with a lawnmower or even just scalping with a Honda.
Yeah, that's right. That's my theory, whether it plays out or not. But I can't just sit around twiddling my thumbs and hoping for this rain to show up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing what happens over the next few years. And, if that lawn renovation stuff doesn't work out, buy a motorbike and come riding.
I used to have a Kawasaki KLX. And someone said he was a tipper truck driver. No, sorry, they I've forgotten now. Who used to drive? A tow truck. It was a tow truck driver.
Oh, yeah.
And I mentioned that I was riding around the bike, and he said, "What are you doing riding around a bike when you own a business? You come off the bike and you hurt your leg. You can't make money."
Yes.
And I sold the bike.
Well, we've
that was a dirt bike, not a road bike.
We walk very different paths. I've got the road bike and the dirt bike. So the dirt bike, I believe, right or wrong, that it's less likely to cause an injury than the road bike.
How do you figure that?
Well, the dirt bike, I'm doing 10 kilometres an hour, maybe 30 kilometres an hour. Occasionally I'll do 60 or 80 kilometres an hour.
Okay.
The road bike, if it's doing 80 kilometres an hour, that's going around the corner.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, I suppose.
So, the risk of a minor injury on the dirt bike is certainly there, and people do die on dirt bikes.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going that far. I wasn't talking about death on bikes. I was just talking about breaking your ankle or something like that.
Yeah, but it's entirely possible to break an ankle or dislocate a joint on a dirt bike. It happens. But so far, touching wood, I haven't hurt myself on the dirt bike at all.
Yeah, okay.
I've had a couple of scary moments on the road bikes. And when you scare yourself on a road bike, your life flashes before your eyes. Yeah.
What are you looking for in the future?
More podcasting.
Okay.
So along with podcasting, I've talked a little bit about what I do in my business on the podcast, and it's predominantly at the moment large commercial contract. And I've said sort of jokingly and not jokingly at the same time, the smallest job I would take on at the moment is $50,000.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, especially to people I don't want to work for, it's like, yeah, you're not in the same league. I'm not actually looking for that sort of work.
Right.
But in the last few months, I've taken on a couple of residential jobs, like that quote I just told you about with the old lady.
Yep.
And a friend who asked me to help improve his lawn, do some weed treatments and a few things. And I'm looking at it from that point of view going, you know what, it keeps me current to do a couple of residential jobs.
Yep.
Keeps me diverse, gives me options. And I'm looking at going, well, if I'm doing a couple of jobs outside of the large commercial contracts, I'd probably need to look more seriously at putting on staff so that I'm also covering my butt with having somebody to fulfill the work that needs to be done. So there's several other things I'm looking at in the background I won't announce on the podcast.
Right.
But predominantly what I'm doing at the moment is trying to make sure that my income streams are diversified through podcasting as well as working.
Yeah, okay.
And
So
podcasting is work, but yeah, different.
What do you think? How are you going to expand your podcasting? Is it only going to stay with lawns, or are you going to start going into other areas?
It's definitely focused on lawns, but what you may not have noticed with my podcast, the predominant theme I try and push in any episode interview, like we've done with you, is how do you run your business? So we're not talking about lawns, we're talking about business.
Yep.
And lawns happens to be the type of business.
Yep.
So when somebody listening to the podcast at the moment, 95% of the listeners come from LMCA and the professional Australian lawn contractors. And 5% find me through Instagram or a friend or a Google search.
Okay. Those are the American listeners, are they?
No, Australian.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so when I get feedback from people about the podcast, that's the one thing that I'm honing in on at the moment is trying to find that 5% that find the podcast that aren't already contractors.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
The reason that's interesting to me is because numbers I've mentioned before, there's about 18,000 contractors in Australia that are lawn mowing businesses.
Right.
That's a ATO number.
Okay.
Lawn contractors in LMCA, there's about 6,000. So we've got about a third of the total number of contractors in LMCA, which is something to be pretty proud of. We have, outside of those numbers, I think we're approaching 30 million Australians. So out of that 30 million, there's a large number of people that are in jobs they're dissatisfied with. Yep. So they're going to happen across my podcast. And when they happen across my podcast, they will hear some sponsors and they will also hear me talking about how they should be running a business so that they can make the most out of it, whether it's intended to be a cowboy, a beer money, a long-term venture, the solo, or whether they want to build a business with lots of employees. They're going to find...
catch the lawn only because it looks better?
No. So I try and provide diversity and say, well, you know what? I mulch the grass, but my friend over in Queensland here, he catches the grass, and we both believe we have the best system there. But I also
only one of us is right.
I also give full props to franchises versus solo guys and vice versa. It's just like, you know what? You can run a business however you choose to run a business. There are things you can do to make it more successful. And if you choose to do it solo, here's how to do it. If you want a bulletproof system, Jim has made a system that works. Or Fox has made a system that works. And yeah, some people won't.
Have you seen Adam from Koala? I think it's Koala Landscapes. Don't quote me on that. He's out starting his a franchise now.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's something I wanted to do years ago and never pulled the finger on it. So yeah, I think it's Koala Landscapes. Like, don't quote me on that. You should be able to find a bit of a Google. Yeah. And go and have, if you're interested in a franchise, he might be better than Jim's. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, people can do any of these things, right? But if they listen to my podcast, they'll get pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So go speak to Koala Landscapes. Tell them Daniel sent you.
Okay. I'll look them up because I'm always looking for more interviews.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
But yeah, the main thing that I want to do with that podcast market at the moment is to reach a wider audience.
Yep.
Reach the people who are thinking about running a business rather than the people who are already running a business.
Yeah, okay.
And both. But yeah, I mean, I can sell a lot more Ego or a lot more Riot or a lot more Walker or, whatever other brand wants to join me. If I've got an audience of people who are ready to start a business.
Yep.
So I'm not just doing it for the
Ego
sponsors.
need to give you a big sticker to put on that red wall you got back behind you.
I think they do.
They do.
Yeah.
It's looking a bit...
Barry, are you listening?
They need a big sticker there.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I think I need to have probably, I reckon about 4 or 5 brands that can help me turn the dungeon into something a little bit more professional.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you need a few big sponsors jumping on board. Do it full time so you can shut down lawns.
Yep.
It's getting dog poo in the face.
No. Hang on a minute. I need to keep on doing lawns. I need to keep my finger on the pulse. Otherwise, I'd be talking about something I don't actually do.
No, but you've got experience in it, so that's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
You've got plenty of experience in it.
For sure. And the best part of my podcast is that every episode, I'm talking to somebody else who's got experience.
Yeah, join it all together.
Because
you'll have more knowledge and experience in just by doing the podcast than anyone else now, won't you?
Well, I've gained a lot of knowledge and wisdom by listening to people. So occasionally I tune out, but people still want to hear you talk about catching grass, even though I don't. It's a viable business model. I don't like it, but it's viable.
The problem with catching grass, it's addictive. The one pass clean cut, and then you've got to get a high lift, and then you've got to get a tipper truck.
Yeah. And
it keeps going.
Yeah, you're tempting me. You're tempting me.
If you're making money doing mulching, that's fine. I got sick of mulching. That's what it come down to.
Fair enough. That's fair. It works for you. And one person I interviewed, I think in Townsville, was making his own grass-flavoured beer. So, there's a market for all sorts of things. Catching's almost as extreme as making grass-flavoured beer, but...
I don't think I'd like that. Is it just fermented?
If you're catching the clippings, you might as well put them in the hopper.
I got heaps of clippings if you want some.
Yeah. I haven't tried it, and I can't drink beer. I don't drink alcohol regardless, but I can't drink beer because of celiac disease.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I don't drink either.
Yeah. Good choice. Put that money towards your Gianni Ferrari instead of the alcohol.
I do want a new Gianni Ferrari. I want one of the bigger models.
One addiction for another. Yeah. Hey, it's been great talking to you. I think
it's a pleasure.
I think we've had a bit of fun, having a bit of banter about what's catching or mulching, and more than anything, it's great to hear what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me to come on here.
It took a while to convince you, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it did. I think there was a couple of people that wanted to hear my side of the story, and the rest didn't want to have a bar of me.
No, I think that what was it? Probably like about 95% of the people who voted yes.
Yeah, I've seen that.
The others were just trying to stir you up.
One of them wanted me not to run a business. I can't remember who that was. They told me to shut the shop.
I wouldn't take their comment too seriously. If anything, they're just jealous and they're like, well, if you shut down your shop, we can buy your gear off you.
Yeah, okay. Everything's for sale for the right price.
Yeah, well, if you're out there looking for that $88,000 Gianni, you might have to sell off the $50,000 one.
I might have to sell something else too.
Yeah. Well, it'll be an interesting space to watch, see whether you're adding to the fleet soon.
Yeah, not soon, but I want to.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Hey, have a good evening.
No worries. Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining me in the dungeon.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.